It's a decentralized transnational terrorist group. So we've got members in many, many different countries that we're looking at who are engaging in this space. And what they do is they inspire each other, they share extremist content and manifestos, and they seek to incite terrorism by lone actors in particular. And there have been a couple of cases in Europe and also the US where individuals directly influenced by this site and this group have carried out deadly attacks.
Is there aggression, if I can put it like that, against any particular group?
They're an extreme right neo-Nazi group. So to that extent, they're focused on migrants, Muslims, Jews, anyone who fits outside the spectrum of who they believe are acceptable members of society. I think neo-Nazis in a nutshell.
Is it possible to gauge how big and how influential they potentially are?
Well, the movement, online movement's been around for a prolonged period of time and has many hundreds of individuals actively participating. It's a pin drop, it's the tip of the iceberg of what's going on out there, but what makes this particular forum important is just the extreme nature of it. The extremity of the material, the fact that people actively incite and actively encourage each other to carry out attacks, as opposed to building a movement. They're seeking to kill. They're an accelerationist movement, and they believe that they can spark a race war through acts of extreme violence.
Right, so their aim is destabilising society?
Destabilise society, destabilise government, but also inspire fear, sow terror, and in doing so, force people collectively to take a side and incite what they consider to be a final battle.
So what are the counter-terrorism measures that have been announced today? What do they mean?
Well, it does show some agility by the government because they're not focused purely on a face-to-face movement. They're focused on an online community, effectively. They're sanctioning anyone involved, including the leaders of these groups, and the leaders are based internationally. And they've been named in US documents about who's involved and the extent to which they've been active. It means that they can not only be held to account and have their resources frozen, but they can also be held criminally liable for the actions and the website itself, or the forum itself. But beyond that, it doesn't do a lot because the movement was banned in the UK last year. It was banned in January this year in the United States. So Australia is effectively jumping on board with what's happened overseas at the moment. And the website, the movement and the forum where they meet on the Telegram encrypted messaging app is already down, meaning that it's no longer accessible anyway.
One of the things Sanction does is as you say, funding. Do groups like this require funding?
We know that extremist groups acquire funding and solicit funding online through the use of Bitcoin and other forms of cryptocurrency. And to that extent, it's almost impossible to track. It's very difficult. However, you can, once you identify the individuals who often hide behind the cloak of anonymity, you can target them directly and make their life incredibly difficult and prevent them from having the resources to participate and potentially to fund attacks.
As we mentioned, this is the first of its kind in Australia. Do you anticipate more? I mean, how many more groups like this are there out there?
There are many online forums where extremism is thriving. Unfortunately, this is an extreme example because what we're seeing now daily on forums like X is extremist content from Australians who are prepared to put their face, some who aren't, targeting minority communities, threatening minority communities, and seeking to incite violence. And that's occurring in plain sight. So not in these encrypted messaging app forums where there's a level of secrecy. They're openly calling for it on forums like X. And that really has to be taken seriously. And that really should be the front line of the battle to address violent extremism in this country.